This is the CreaseCast.
All right, everybody, it's the CreaseCast, and no, the Canucks are not in the playoffs. I'm sure this was addressed on last week's episode. Yeah, TIL, bro.
Why didn't you tell me?
This is like finding out. It's like finding out Santa isn't real.
Wait, what? I'm sorry. What did you just say? No,
yeah, okay. Cut that. This is awkward now. Yeah, sorry, folks. The Canucks are failures. We all knew this, but we're not here to talk about the Canucks. Actually, we kind of are, but we're just not going to talk about the Canucks playoffs because they aren't in it because they sucked. They blew it. They lost to Ottawa, and it was terrible.
Oh, that's right. You haven't been on a show in that long.
Yes. We can update the viewers because I was thinking about this actually on my drive home. I was like, when the fuck was I even on an episode last? Because so much has happened in the last 3 weeks for me. So for those that are keeping track and care, which is not many of you, maybe 10%. So ones of you.
Our listeners care. They care about us. They listen just to make sure we're doing okay.
That's true. So yeah, a couple weeks ago, my wife came home from work. This is actually really random because we decided to record on a Tuesday instead of a Monday because the Canucks were playing on Monday, and we figured the Tuesday would be better to just do a recap instead of, having a show that would be out of date the second we finish recording. And then so the Tuesday comes, and my wife texts me being like, "Oh, I'm leaving work early. I just don't feel well." I'm like, "Oh, okay, that sucks." And then I come home, and she's passed out on our bathroom floor. And so, needless to say, 2 hospitals and 48 hours in emergency chairs later, it turned out to be a badly inflamed appendix requiring emergency surgery. And then the following week, of course, couldn't come on the show because, just doing male nurse things, trying to be there, apparently moving around with 3 holes in your stomach after surgery. Apparently that's hard to do. Who knew?
Jesus.
And then I was going to come on to the Friday show, but then I started getting very sick, which was just fucking wonderful. Actually, not Friday. We were going to do Saturday's show because, again, just other things happening made it make more sense to do it on a Saturday instead of a Friday. And then on the Saturday, naturally, I was sick, which was just, wonderful timing.
Yeah,
and then
you'd been updating us on it over the couple weeks, and it was geez,
it was just something else,
one domino after another. It was a tough couple weeks for you, my dude.
Yeah, and I feel like I missed a show before too because my dog was sick or something like that, which isn't it sounds like a fake excuse. It sounds like my dog ate my homework.
Yeah,
but this is a real thing that happened. My dog was sick this entire time through my wife's poor ordeal with the hospital. He had bowel issues. So in the midst of taking care of my wife at this hospital and at home, I was dealing with this idiot dog who I guess ate something he should not have eaten and was just shitting his brains out over and over again every 2 hours.
What a lovely image.
Yeah. I'll send pictures to you later of what I was dealing with.
Oh, that's okay.
That's gonna be the
that's
gonna be the YouTube thumbnail. It's just a picture of my dog's bowel movements.
Dear God. Oh God, Lord, I hope not.
I won't do that. But we're on the up and up, and it couldn't have come at a better time. Yeah. So for everyone keeping track, my wife's doing really well. Today was her first day back at work, and her work was very kind and let her work from home, so she wouldn't overdo it. So kudos to them. Kudos to her for being on the up and up because it couldn't have come at a better time because Lachlan, it's playoff season, baby.
It is playoff season. And but at the same, and you know what, at the same time though, for anyone who might be listening to this for the first time, because we're going to be talking about a lot more NHL stuff today rather than just the Canucks, obviously, we should probably reintroduce ourselves. I'm Lachlan Irvin and I write for Canucks Army. Cody, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, my name is also Cody Sievertson, and guess what? I am also now a Canucks Army writer. Yay! Believe it or not, I don't know how. Somehow, I finagled a job writing. Actually, it's pretty amazing. So for those that don't know, I write about the AHL Abbotsford team. It used to be the Utica Comets. Now it's the Abbotsford Canucks. So I get a text message from David Quadrelli, the managing editor of Daily Faceoff and Canucks Army. And he's like, "Hey, I really want you to cover the farm team for us at Canucks Army. And I turned him down in the past for various reasons, but he was insistent, just like, I don't care about whatever your reasons are. Like, you're going to be a great fit. I want you to cover playoffs. I want you to do this, that, the other thing. And I was like, okay, great. Signed my contract or whatever. And then I texted him because he's in Edmonton right now visiting the head honchos. And so I said, David, there's a final game for their regular season on this day. I think this was Saturday or whatever it was. And I was like, do you want me to put this on Canucks Army? Like, will you have time to edit it? Like, I don't want to impose. And he's like, yeah, sure. And so I was like, okay, great. Like, a little bit of a warm up. Like, obviously, Lachlan, like, I have not been writing lately just because of all the litany of things going on in my life. And so I was like, oh, this will be good. It'll just be like a standard game. Like, they're just playing a non-divisional opponent. They just need 1 point and they'll lock in playoff home dates. And then I'll go cover the playoffs live with Faber and Quadrelli at my side as Canucks Army brothers. And then, well, they blew it.
Whoops.
They blew it about as bad as any team could blow it. For those that don't follow the AHL farm team, you should be following my coverage at CanucksArmy.com or my site, ahlnucksharvest.com. They needed a single point to secure playoff home dates at the Abbotsford Center, and they couldn't do it. And it's not that they just lost 2 games in a row and lost playoff hosting duties, but they got blown out. They got killed 7-1 in one game and 6-0 in their regular season finale.
Jeez.
It was embarrassing. Like, one of the most embarrassing like run of losses I think I've ever seen. It was so bad. And I texted Dave in the middle of the game, basically being like, they're doing awful. And he's just like laughing, like, of course. And I'm like, yeah, this is so funny. I couldn't picture it in a better way to start my Canucks Army writing career. But long-winded story short, really excited. Going to be, hopefully, I mean, fingers crossed, if they get through this opening round series, I'll be able to go to games live and cover playoffs in Abbotsford with Dave and Chris Faber, and that's going to be really fun. The dynamic trio, probably going to be one of the best AHL, like the most expansive AHL coverage like ever. Like completely unnecessary, but also somehow necessary for Canucks Nation.
Somehow the Athletic will poach all 3 of you for the Athletic Abbotsford. Like, it'll be for like very hyper specific.
You're gonna see like 3 people covering games there, and they're gonna be like, man, this must pull tons of numbers or something. They must get lots of clicks on the AHL content. And we'll be like, yeah, totally.
It'd be funnier if it actually turned out that you guys were like secretly like the best, like had more people reading your about the AHL team than even the NHL team.
Oh man,
like something like that.
Funny.
But I mean, you and I, like, it's almost been like, I think, close to half a year since I joined Canucks Army. So, and like, honestly, like, it was one of those things where it was like, we knew, like, you'd been getting asked for a while, like long before we knew about it. And it was like, I'm so happy that you are finally jumping on, because obviously your work is incredible. Like, the stuff that you do and the time that you put in is awesome. Not to pat you too hard on the back and make this like a show about us, just like,
anyways, folks, this is the end of the episode. I just came here to get my back patted. It's been a great episode. I'll see you later.
Your crown, sir. Like, yeah. And I'm thrilled for you, buddy. Like, we've like, you're one of the most talented, hardworking guys in the market, and especially for like the work that you put in. And I
was thinking about that when Faber quote tweeted my thing, like indicating that I'd be writing for Canucks Army, and he's like, Cody's like a really hard worker, and there's going to be like the best AHL coverage. And I was looking at my site for the last recap I did. It was like like a month and a half ago, and I was like,
you have a good reason. You have plenty of good.
I had plenty of reasons, but like if you didn't know the reasons behind it, you'd be like, who the fuck is this guy? What the hell are you talking about? Works hard. He hasn't done anything. I do. Trust me, guys. Trust me.
And now what's crazy is now that both of us are Canucks Army people, it's only a matter of time before the CreaseCast becomes a Canucks Army show. Like, that's clearly where this is heading, right? Like
Dude, yeah.
they're gonna have to pay us like $1 million at least. We were talking about this. Like they're gonna,
Yeah, that's true.
it's to sell the IP. Like, there's a very, obviously like Disney has been in talks. Like,
Yeah. This is
now,
definitely
like,
like a Disney Plus series. Like
yes,
I don't want to toot my horn, but
yeah.
this is basically better than anything Disney has done with the Star Wars franchise.
I mean, yeah, I would say it's a close second to Mandalorian at least. I would say like it's a close second.
Yeah, I guess I could agree with that. But anyways, folks, we're not going to talk
Yeah,
about Disney Plus. We're
no,
going to talk quickly some Canucks stuff. We're going to then get into our playoff predictions because, as we said, we are recording Monday night. Toronto is up 1-0 on Tampa. I'm not too sure what the score is in Boston, Carolina, but we've got 4 games on tonight's docket, and we'll update as we go through tonight's episode. And we're going
yeah,
to try to not let tonight's results impact our playoff predictions, but we're going to get through them because there's quite a bit. And both of us are very long-winded people, as you can tell by our 15-minute intro in which I talk about all of this crap you don't care about. So Lachlan, let's get quickly into the Canucks because we were talking beforehand about Nazem Kadri and the seasons he's having and how he's in a contract year and producing like crazy. And then you brought up JT Miller and whether or not he would eclipse 99 points again. And I was going to say to you before I said, nah, let's record and talk about this later. And so here we are. I have this feeling that JT Miller can probably hit 99 points or more, but it completely depends on the team direction. Like if Patrick Alvin and Jim Rutherford come out and they're like, we think like Bruce Boudreau, we can make a few tweaks here or there and be in playoffs. Like the team's final run at the end of the season is indicative of a playoff caliber team. Then JT Miller might be like, yeah, I'm motivated. We are gunning for playoffs. Management thinks we can do it and they believe in it. So I'm going to try my hardest to get us there. But if he isn't traded and they come out and say, we're still a few years away, and they start trading away pieces like maybe Tyler Myers gets traded, Connor Garland, Hoglander, like who knows? But if they start trading pieces away to make cap space to prepare themselves for like a longer term, like 2-3 years down the road, I don't think JT Miller's even in the top 5 of scoring next year because he's going to be so checked out.
Yeah, it does come down a little bit to, yeah, exactly, like the team direction, yeah, and entirely like who's here next season, right? Because
Yeah.
and like let's say even JT Miller is trying 110% to score 100 points next year. If he doesn't have the line mates to go with it, like it's not going to work. JT Miller is a star player, like clearly has star capabilities, but he's not like able to, I wouldn't say he's necessarily able to say lift make depth guys like bottom 6 players suddenly into top 6 scorers. Like that's not what his skill is, and that's a rare skill in itself. Like not that's reserved for very rare few, like the Connor McDavids, the Austin Matthews, the Sidney Crosbys. Like those are like that's a rare thing within itself. With Miller, he still needs the guys to play with, and considering that Bruce Boudreau very rarely played him with, say, like Elias Pettersson and Brock Besser, like the Lotto line was rarely put together under Boudreau. It's unlikely that even if trades took some other guys out, that he would make that a priority again. So it's very likely that, yeah, it does come down to fully how much this management group believes in what is available to them, and in a way, more importantly, like what they have to give up to kind of get everything back on track, specifically when it comes to the salary cap. Like Connor Garland, you look at a guy who did a great job this year. Like at times, like I said in the last show, was almost harder on himself than he needed to be. Like he was routinely one of the Canucks' best players and one of their best offensive drivers all season. Even when the points weren't necessarily coming for him. And he's a guy on a very team friendly contract, and like he's one of the prime candidates for the same reason of why the Coyotes moved him. If this is the player you have to give up to, say, get rid of a bad contract or a deal to kind of free up cap space, he's probably the guy that would have to go in that case. And all of a sudden, if you don't have a Connor Garland in your lineup, that massively affects your ceiling and what you're able to do.
Right.
Especially considering Miller was playing with Garland quite a bit. So near the
Mhm.
end of the year. So yeah, it does entirely come down to what decisions management makes. But at the same time, I think he's clear. Like what we saw this year, I don't think was an anomaly in terms of his capabilities. Like if we're just
Yeah.
talking specifically on what JT Miller can do, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility at all that he could score 99 points again in the right situation.
Right. Like for example, Tage Thompson in Buffalo, nearly a 40 goal scorer after being like an 18-point kid for like the last 3 years. That is an anomaly. Maybe he repeats next year because the coaching staff in Buffalo finally realized like you just got to treat him like a skill forward and not like just like a 6'7" center or whatever it is. Maybe that's sustainable. JT Miller, I think it probably could repeat if the pieces are there. The fact that he got to 99 points without actually being on the lotto line the entire time is like a testament to like what he might actually be capable of.
Yeah.
So I don't know, who knows, but obviously it comes down to what, Alvin and Rutherford think this group's ceiling is. Like if they think like, yeah, their ceiling is getting 93 points and missing playoffs as the best team, like they're going to want to trade or fix things. And if you want to do that in a really impressive way, you would probably trade like the best player possible, which is JT Miller or a Connor Garland, like you're saying. And especially if you need to free up cap too, like Connor Garland's like what, like a $5 million contract or something like that.
Yeah,
Like
I was doing report cards for Canucks Army, which you guys can go check out.
your
The first part of
your 8,000 word
3,000. I felt so bad. I'm like, Quads, I'm sorry, dude. I wrote 3,000 words. I know this is not what you asked for, and now it's a 4-parter. And he's because Quads is the best. Garland. When I was doing the research for that and everything, Garland had the highest wins above replacement of any Canuck forward, including JT Miller. So Garland there are a lot of smart teams out there that would look at Connor Garland, ignoring the fact and not see an undersized, like a smaller sized forward. They'll see a guy who is clearly capable of making everybody around him better as a result of him being there. And yeah, like Miller and Miller was second. Like Miller was number 2 on that list. And yeah, like I would ask you the question, Cody, like how many, like as far as like let's say the top 9, we kind of had our top 9 this year to varying degrees. Injuries obviously played a difference. How many of those guys do you actually think will be back next year?
Oof, that's tough. Of the top, okay, so top 9. So
Yeah, so
I would
we'll say So the lotto line plus you got Höglander, Podkolzin, Pearson, Garland. Pearson, who did great this year.
Like I almost want to say like you're still bringing back like 7 of 9.
Yeah,
because like maybe Besser gets moved just because you can't like stomach the qualifying offer. Maybe you trade like one of Pearson, Garland, Miller, or Besser are like 100% going to be gone. Like there's no way they bring all of them back. But
yeah, they can't.
You just look at like you look at what's below that, and you're like, can they even afford to like, not even financially, but can they afford to get rid of any of those guys from their top 9 without like drastically damaging like their forward group? Because like the fourth line, like I tweeted out the whole Tyler Mott nearly got Juho Lammikko and Matthew Highmore paid because they're fucking terrible without him on their line. Like just terrible.
Yeah,
with Tyler Mott, they were like
I wouldn't even say they were terrible. They were just like what I expected out of them. Like they were exactly they were punching above their weight with Mott, and then they kind of just leveled back to what they were supposed to be.
They played how a fourth line probably should be played. I mean,
yeah.
I would argue they played worse because they were on ice for 1 goal for and 6 goals against, which at 5v5 is pretty bad for a team that, as has been pointed out many times, was one of the best at preventing 5v5 goals against all season. So the fact that 6 of them came with these two on the ice in like I think it was like 48 minutes of ice time together at 5v5 since Mott was traded. That's like a big, huge red flag where you're like, okay, so if you get rid of Pearson, you get rid of Hoglander or Garland, suddenly it's like, okay, who are you elevating to your top 9 now? Or what are you replacing them with? And the answer is, we don't know. We don't really have anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I want to say like less than 9 or less than 7 return, but at the same time, I'm like, I completely understand if they were like, we need to run it back with the same forward group because nothing's coming and we don't have the cap space to like make it so that there is something coming.
Yeah,
But I don't
not
know,
without
maybe you
making
might
big
disagree.
changes. Yeah, I think there are like I mean I'll say like I think I'm looking at guys like Jason Dickinson as probably a guy who might be like on the chopping block there, especially because again like I've said a lot, I don't think Dickinson's season was an indicator of what his actual skill is. I think it was just the wrong fit.
I
for both.
completely forgot about him. Like
Yeah.
when we're doing when you said the top 9, I didn't not even think of him or consider him like a forward.
I didn't
Like-
even immediately like he wasn't even in my immediate like thought process, which in a way is more I would say not only highlights what a struggle it was for him this year, but also like how well Podkolzin did down the stretch because he might have been the odd man out before. It's like now it's like it's very much a case of okay, but Podkolzin is clearly ready for more capability, more responsibilities. So you bring him up, and that comes at the cost of probably a winger, probably a guy like someone like Dickinson, and then unfortunately it might be a Garland, which would suck. I would love to have Connor Garland in my lineup every night, but if that's what it takes to say get rid of Tucker Poolman being a contract that you probably have to move on from, like you look at guys like not Tyler Myers, he did okay this year. Like you look at like say somebody like I don't know like OEL who did okay as well, but like that.
But like if you're looking, it's basically like what Arizona did. If you're looking at trying to move off a $7 million cap hit, you would use Garland or whatever as a sweetener or a Hoglander or whatever because
it would be really
can't use it or you can't. It's not it's not an efficient usage of cap space basically.
Yeah, it would be really funny if like in like a weird way if like OEL and Garland got traded together again as a package to like some other to like some completely new team. Like it'd be funny. It's like should we just like be roommates? Should we just buy a house together?
Should we buy a duplex?
Yeah,
let's get a duplex together.
Yeah,
it's probably more efficient.
The odd couple. He's he's tall. I'm short.
He's messy. I'm clean.
It's just Mike and Sully from Monsters Inc.
He's Swedish. I'm English.
Yeah, exactly. Like that would be very funny.
I'd tune into that.
That'd be good. That's a Disney Plus show for you.
Yeah. Otherwise, folks, that's pretty much it for our Canucks discussion. We just had a question that we were pitching around before we started recording, but right now, because we're gonna try to not go too long, we want to get into our playoff brackets, our picks, because I don't even remember. I feel like I picked Tampa to repeat last year.
I think you might have.
I think I picked Tampa versus Vegas, but I said Tampa would repeat and Vegas would flame out. Obviously, with like the weird brackets, like no one expected like Montreal to be there. Like nobody did.
I think I did have Montreal winning the first round just because of well, it's Toronto. Toronto will do the Toronto thing that they always do.
I think I mean, there was the joke when I jinxed Colorado, right? When I tweeted or I said in the podcast, like Colorado's never losing a game again in this playoffs, and then they lost.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Like so. I had responded to a lot of people because a lot of people like reached out to be like, "Hey, congrats on the Canucks Army gig," and someone was like, "Hey, what do you think's going to happen for playoffs?" And I was like, "Well, I just got signed up to do playoff coverage, so that's the jinx in itself. So they're probably going to lose immediately, which I can almost guarantee it's going to happen now. It'll be funny as hell." Oh, and before we get into playoff coverage, just so anyone watching our YouTube channel understands, I'm not wearing shades because I think I look cool. I do look cool. They're my wife's shades, but she was gonna return them, but I might keep them because I look pretty cool. But I'm wearing them because I have a horrendous headache, and I've been staring at a computer screen at work all day, and so doing the show, I was like, I need to save my eyelids as much as possible. So that's why it's not an ego thing.
See, I thought it I thought it was because you are helping to promote our brand new sponsor, Paramount Pictures Top Gun Maverick, coming out
Ooh.
May 27th, 2022. Our new
Okay.
spot.
You know what's so
Yeah.
funny? It's like I saw something like promoted on Twitter for that, and it was like Top Gun became the most highest rated or highest reviewed debuting action movie of all time or something. And like you read like the cliff notes of it, and it's like all the people that reviewed it were invited to the premiere. So they basically invited like a bunch of idiots who are just happy to be there, and they're like, "It's the best movie I've ever seen."
Like the
And it's like,
original Top Gun, like the first one.
no, this is like for
Oh,
the new one coming out.
okay.
So they had like because
It's
this is what studios do. Like they did this for the Star Wars movies too, right? They invite
right
like you know Jimmy from ilovestarwars.com to come to the premiere
from
and
Wookiee.
review
Yeah.
it, knowing full well that the guy is like a huge Star Wars nerd and he's just gonna cream over whatever's on the screen no matter what. And
What
so
a
then they
what a
can
what a
say
descriptive
like
adjective.
every single person in the theater was crying and loved it, and like but they didn't have like a single like actual movie critic. It's
Let
just
the
like
record show that there was a standing
nerds.
applause. Like
Yeah. It's like they're talking about Top Gun Maverick like it's this incredible, monumental, breathtaking action movie, and it's probably just like a bunch of like nerds who just like love the original Top Gun who were just happy to be invited to a premiere. Anyways, this is a huge tangent, but I
oh,
saw that the other day and it was like
there's
that's
music by Lady
ridiculous.
Gaga
Oh, wait, in Top Gun?
in Top Gun.
Did she do like the theme song?
I'm assuming so. Is it? It might be like a Bond thing where it's just like, oh, she wrote the theme song. Or whatever. It might be like I don't know. I'm just looking at the Google thing where it's like music by so and so, Lady Gaga, Hans Zimmer. Like, oh, cool.
Oh yeah,
Well,
I love
Hans
those
Zimmer's
two.
in there.
Yeah,
Like
Hans Zimmer and Lady Gaga. That's my favorite combo.
when I think of movies, I think of two people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we'll get right into the playoffs. Sorry for the Top Gun discussion. Shout out to my friend though, who got the nickname Top Gun by my father-in-law because he saw him wearing a shirt or a hat that said Top Gun on it, and he's never chosen to learn his name, so he just refers to him as Top Gun.
That
Which is
sounds so like that sounds like a thing. Like that sounds
yeah,
like one of those things that I'd hear like, "Hey, white shirt, get over
yeah,
here."
yeah,
Like,
exactly. Hey, Top Gun, how you doing over here? But
yeah, exactly.
Uh,
That's
I guess we're gonna
great.
go. I guess we'll go top seeds, or we'll go East Conference to Western first.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, we got that's the way I accidentally threw it in. So yeah, let's do
oh
it.
hell yeah, let's do it. So obviously, first series, the number one ranked Florida Panthers versus the number four ranked Washington Capitals. I think you and I are probably going to have very similar picks because I think you and I last year did the same kind of logic of who can you trust in goal and who do you like more.
Yes, exactly. We are all about just vibes on
We're
playoff
it
picks
is very
always.
much like it's like vibes and like yeah, it's like purely vibes and goaltending. Like
Yeah.
it like I don't care how many 30 goal scorers what team had. If I trust your goaltender more than the other one, I'm picking you. And that's the
Yeah.
logic I have for like every like my entire bracket. So, for the first one, I picked Florida. I'm confident they're going to destroy them. Like it's just like almost like de facto it's going to be the case. I don't think Washington's given a shit about hockey since they won their cup. And when you stick with a core group that has finally won a cup after like a decade of struggles, they don't really have many incentives to get back to the dance when it took so long to get there the first time. So I will always bet against Washington at this point. Like
Forever and ever, amen. Like you just think like, or at
forever and
least
ever.
until
I just
the OV era ends,
until
really.
the Backstrom Kuznetsov Ov era, like once that era is over, then I'll start considering them. Until then, though, no, they just don't do it for me. So I picked Florida. I don't think I said it was a sweep. I think I picked them to be like done in 5, just because there's no like a sweep is hard to do, and unless you're like the Edmonton Oilers, like it takes a lot to get swept by another team.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I gave him a little bit of credit. So
Yeah.
Florida in
So,
5. What was yours?
so
Florida's been your team, and I
yes.
talked you against wearing a Florida jersey today because I said you will jinx them.
Yeah, me and Arash are both fully on the bandwagon. Shout out to a friend of the show, Arash Mamarzadeh, who I believe has his Claude Giroux Panthers jersey already.
Oh my god.
Which because I think Claude Giroux is just like his favorite player, like, for the same reason that like I have my Panthers jersey is Luongo and I bought it this
Fair.
year. Like look, the Panthers are in a way. I think the Panthers' hardest series is going to be this one. Because like even though they're the President's Trophy winners, which by the way, just like I don't think I expected. I said this on the last show. I don't think I ever expected to live in a world where the Florida Panthers are the President's Trophy winners. So good for them. Like,
bit of a weird
holy
one.
cow. Yeah, what a weird one after years of futility for them to come out and have like two, like literally they hire a new GM. Suddenly they're like the best team in the NHL back-to-back years. They're like in the regular season. Good for them. It all put together. I think for them, like they're one of the few cases where like a first overall team really only has to win the first series to kind of say like they've done what they came to do, because they haven't won a playoff series since 1996 when they last made the final, which is wild. Like I was not born the last time the Panthers won a playoff series. And I'm 25. So that's just wild. I think in a way that's going to be the hardest for them, because they know the pressure of, oh my God, this franchise hasn't won a damn thing in years. And I think in a way like this is going to be the hardest out for them. If they can get through the first round, I think it'll be a lot easier for them because they'll be kind of playing with house money past that point. But at the same time, like, so I could see them beating themselves a little bit here, where it's like a case of they might lose a few games just because they're a little bit stressed and they're like
or they're like over eager, like they're trying a bit too hard,
gripping
the stick a little too tight, as they say.
Exactly. But at the same time, like you mentioned with the goaltending thing, like Sergei Bobrovsky is Sergei Bobrovsky. Like he could turn into a pumpkin in seconds, in the same way that he could all of a sudden turn into a wall made of steel. He could just do that. He just does that without like every other, like whenever. Like Ilya Samsonov, I think, has been pretty good for the Caps this year, but like I trust that goaltending with the Panthers a little bit more. I trust their depth a lot more than I trust the Capitals. I think that, I mean, any team with Ovechkin, it's hard to count out too badly, because that guy definitely has the drive to do it, to win. Like maybe not everybody on the team does, but he sure usually does, and he is going to be back for that game after missing a few with injury, but. I think Florida's going to get through. I also think they're going to win in 5. And like, I think after that, world's their oyster. Like they could do just about anything they wanted to, and they'd be fine. Yeah.
Because I'm in the opposite mindset where I'm like, I think this is their easiest matchup and it only gets harder from here.
Oh, for sure. Like it is there, like on paper, 100%, this is the easiest. It's just the matter of,
like getting over the hump, you mean?
It's like with the Leafs, where they're like so often like the favorite to win a series, but it's just that clearly, oh my God, we're so snake bitten, where they start making just goofus mistakes for no reason, completely unforced errors, and it all goes south quick. Like that's where I worry with Florida, but I think they'll be fine.
Fair. On to the next series, the number 2 Toronto Maple Leafs versus the number 3 Tampa Bay Lightning. A series that I don't know if you're watching it, but I'm watching it as we record. Yes. So
breakaway coming up right here for nope.
Nope.
Well, that's a penalty. Wow, you took a penalty in a playoff game, Sergachev. That's
there's been like
impressive.
already like I think 2 power plays each, maybe 3.
A lot of goals, which is par for the course with Tampa. Like that's the way the Tampa Bay Lightning like to play, is
the one game in which they didn't feature heavily on power plays was famously 2011 Game 7 versus Boston, in which no penalties were called and Boston won.
Yep.
Weird how that works, huh?
Interesting. Yeah,
Uh,
the Lightning are a team that play like we did it last year. Like the Lightning are a dirty team, and but they are also a very good team, and
yes.
so they are not afraid to take a bunch of penalties, knowing that they will get a lot back, and they'll be able to get some good opportunities. Of course, they had Kyle Clifford in the box technically for 5 minutes with a game
Yep.
misconduct already for a hit on
Ooh.
Ross Colton from behind, like a hit from behind on Ross Colton, but they didn't capitalize, and the Leafs are actually winning this game right now, which is kind of surprising.
I mean, good for them. They like just from what I've watched so far, Toronto's playing with like tremendous speed and compete right now. Like I want to say they're incredibly motivated to get over the asterisk of like can they do it? Can they get past the first round? So they're probably playing with some serious fire. They're probably like in like a situation where it's like if they don't get early, like if they don't get like a 2 game series lead, like they might like start getting that inkling of doubt, like, oh, maybe we aren't going to get out of the first round. But I still picked Lightning to win in 7. Like I think this series is going to go long, even though like I can't trust Jack Campbell in good conscience. Like
Really?
I just can't. Like if I like I was saying earlier, like picking vibes and based on goaltender, if I'm betting on anyone, I'm betting on Andre Vasilevsky over Jack Campbell, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
I
easy.
have to trust them, or I trust him more. And while Toronto has like a clear speed advantage, like Tampa is the type of team where they probably took their foot off the gas through the regular season because they know how to win in playoffs now. And I would be completely willing to bet that they were coasting so that they could save all their energy, rest up for a playoff series run as like a lower seed instead of as the high seed. So I still think they're going to do it. And it's a shame because like Toronto is playing really good hockey. Like you don't get like a 40 goals or like a 60 goal scorer out of Austin Matthews out of luck. Like clearly they're
No.
doing something right. They've got good depth. They've got like a pretty decent defense, but I just can't bet. I just can't bet on the goaltending. If they get through, that's great. This is probably like their toughest test of the playoffs. Like after this, it would be, the winner of Tampa and Washington or Boston and Carolina. Like that's a pretty easy out instead of the defending 2-time Stanley Cup champs.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a tough one. Like I think I've talked
I
about
think
this
this could be one of.
before, but like I like the way that Toronto built their team. Like they fudged a couple drafts in a row, but they still managed to like build a pretty credible team. And they were smart with their cap. They retained salary to just like pick up assets where they could. I like their development system. So like from like a process point of view, like it would be really good if they did actually get through and like go to a cup final as like a testament that they were doing things the right way. But yeah, drawing the back-to-back champs, that's tough, man.
It is tough, but you know what? Like, so I'll say this. Let me preface this by saying I also picked Tampa to win because it's hard to bet against a team that's won 2 back-to-back Stanley Cups. But then I remember there's actually 2 factors I didn't factor into that decision. One being just the absolute like toll it takes on your body to play that many games in a short span, like the Lightning have, as the
Right.
Leafs go up 2-0 here. That damage, like there's the famous quote I think from Gretzky where he was talking about how after the Oilers lost their first cup final against the Islanders of course winning that was like their 4th cup in a row, how as they were like walking past their locker room, they expected to see like a big old champagne party and just celebration, but actually all they saw were a bunch of guys beat up, just like
Just completely
yeah,
gassed.
completely gassed, like just kind of trying to catch their breath because they had played so many games in a 4.5 decade span
Right.
to get to that point. And now it's almost even tougher where like you can't repeat anymore because of how close how evenly matched the playoff teams are nowadays.
Mhm.
Like two might as well be 4 because of
Right.
how many injuries come out of that and how many guys play through it. So to play
Especially
all
for
of that,
Tampa too.
especially for Tampa, so to do all that, to play multiple 82 game seasons, or like, well, I guess last year 56, and then
But for
whatever
them
it
too,
was.
it was like the bubble playoffs ended, and then like a month later they were back into the regular season where
Yeah.
half their team was like decimated by injuries, and
Yeah.
then they go and repeat, which is like basically like a year straight of intense hockey, and then
Yes.
they get a couple months off before the season kicks up again with this season.
Yeah.
And so like that's a lot of hockey intensity in a short period of time. So like I could completely understand them being completely burnt out.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I forgot to factor in was also the fact of like, this is the first time in a while that even though the Leafs are actually like the home team and are the home team with home ice advantage, the higher seed and everything, they're the underdog in this series, clearly,
Yeah.
because of who they're playing. And I think back to, the Capitals teams that kept losing to the Penguins year after year when they were like the President's Trophy winners, the best team in the division, like that sort of thing. And then finally, the year that they're not the best in that group, the year they're back to kind of being one of the sleeper teams again. That's when they finally get over the hump and beat the Penguins,
Right.
and win the cup. So it's one of those things where it's like maybe this is the year. This is actually a perfect first round draw for the Leafs because they're not going to be. Because people like us are already going, well, they're going to get swept. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Write them
Like
off.
that, yeah, exactly. Maybe this is actually the perfect first round for them because they can actually kind of fly a little bit under the radar and people
For
are
sure.
already counting them
Because
out.
it is, yeah, it's a blessing and a curse, right? Because drawing Tampa in the first round is like, oh fuck, we have to play like these experienced vets who know what it takes to win in the first round. But if they had played like Carolina or something and beat them and got past the first round, people would then be like, oh well, they had an easy opponent. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like if they get past Tampa, then it's like, oh, this team is actually legit. They actually really put in work to overcome adversity and get over the hump. Like this is their dragon slaying season basically. And if they can't do
Yes.
it, well, can't really fault them because that's a tough out. But I mean, hopefully they do it.
Yeah.
Make things a bit
It's,
spicy.
yeah. Like I think, like we always say on the show, like as much as like, again, people will, in Vancouver love to hate on Toronto. For fair, legitimate reasons. It has
Legitimate
less to do
reasons.
with the actual team. I think it has less to do with the actual team as it does the people around it,
The
like the
coverage, maybe.
coverage and the very annoying people on Twitter.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
God, if the Leafs win a series, they will be insufferable. But they're at the same time, like when it comes to like what the sport and what's good for it, it does suck when guys like Austin Matthews don't get chances to play for deep into a playoff run, right?
Oh,
Like
for
that's
sure.
not good for hockey when him or Connor McDavid, who we'll talk about later, don't get those opportunities.
Yeah.
It's bad. But and at the same time, like like the Leafs are a team that it's going to be interesting seeing like the Leafs who are built smaller, who are built like a smaller team going up against the Lightning, who are
Like a heavy press team.
heavy,
Yeah.
heavy team that can match them in the skill department, no problem. And that's rare within itself. So it'll be like at the very least, like it's gonna be if the Leafs come out of it, it's going to be brutal for a brutal grind to get through this series, no matter how many games it goes for them. But honestly, they might actually have a decent shot here.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
All right, next series. The Carolina Hurricanes, the number 1 seed of the Atlantic, versus the number 4 seed Boston Bruins. This one to me is kind of a pick 'em. I don't trust the goaltending in either team. I like Carolina's forward group, but I don't like Tony DeAngelo, so I'm
That's
completely against picking them to win, but I kind of had to because I always pick against Boston no matter what. It's just what you got to do.
you got to
So
do what you
yeah,
got to do.
I picked Carolina. I can't remember how many games. I think I picked 6.
I think I also picked 6 for them. Like I think like the Bruins have given the Hurricanes a lot of trouble in the playoffs over the last little while, or like
Yeah.
in these kinds of series. But now the big X factor for the Bruins is gone, and that being Tuukka Rask.
Mhm.
And now, to be fair, Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman were very good this year and better than I anticipated. But even still, like it was clear the Bruins aren't as strong a team this year because of
Yeah.
how much they had to rely on Tuukka Rask in the past.
Yeah.
And while they're still getting great goaltending now, they're just Ullmark and Swayman are at rest, and that's fine. Like that's that's a high bar to hit for any goaltender. And with Carolina, it's like, well, you and I talked about it. Like, good Lord, why are they bringing 2 injury prone goaltenders in? That's my biggest worry with Carolina. It's not about the talent of Freddie Anderson. Like, I think he's very good in all situations when he's healthy. Ronta in himself is there too. But
who is allegedly, I think he's starting right now too.
I believe Ronta is the one starting because Anderson is injured. So far it's working because the Canes are up 2-0. But like, again, it's the case of if they get hurt, what do you have? And I believe they have a decent like rookie goaltender who played a couple games at the end of the year for them because both goalies were injured. But much like the Avalanche, that remains my biggest concern with them. I think if the guys their net minding stays healthy, they will go on a deep run. But that's entirely what it's hinging upon because they have the horses, they have the scoring talent, they have the depth and the good defense to do it. It's really just a matter of can they keep healthy in net, because otherwise that could be their Achilles heel like it has been the last 2-3 years for them.
And Boston is like, I think Boston's like in that Pittsburgh Penguins mold where we keep talking about like how they're finally going to be too old and like they need to start looking at the future, but they like find ways to do it. But I think now, I think we joked about this in our last season predictions or playoff predictions. We were like, I think now is the year where the Pittsburgh Penguins are finally over the hump, and now here they are in playoffs again. But
as a third seed, no less. Like,
like
they won't
Patrice Bergeron. Everyone's like, oh, he's gonna fall off eventually, and yet here he is at like 36 years old, still putting up like a Selke caliber season. So you're like in theory, he should be too old, and the Boston Bruins are gonna need to reset here, but they just keep proving everyone wrong.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, David Pastrnak, you can't count out his talent as well, right? Like he's the kind of guy that like he is their youth, right? Like that, like once Bergeron retires, it's Pasternak's
it's
team,
his show,
not?
basically. Yeah.
Like some will say Marchand, but it's Pasta.
It'll be his
scoring
probably.
touch, right? Like I think Carolina's got this. I think I said 6 for Carolina as well.
Yeah, fair. Leafs update. Sorry, folks.
3-0.
Yeah, 3-0. A shorthanded goal.
David camped on a breakaway, and he made it look like a one of those like uncontested like slam dunks in an NBA game.
That looked like a closing goal, like the final goal of a game or something. That's a slick one.
Hey, if they keep that up, like good, yeah, like they're gonna have they might make us all look like fools here pretty quick. Which good start for them.
Yeah. All right, next series, last series in the East. The New York Rangers versus the number 3 Pittsburgh Penguins. I think you and I had the same pick for this one. I picked the Rangers. I think I picked them in 5, purely because Tristan Jarry is injured apparently. Casey DeSmith, really? I think he's injured. He had like a foot injury or something, so they're basically relying on Casey DeSmith and someone else.
Who's done, I think, okay in like the regular season.
Yeah, as like a platoon, I think they've both been like really good this season. Crosby is naturally Crosby and finding a way, but yeah, I just don't trust the depth. I don't think they've really improved as a group. They're just kind of relying on the fact that Sid's, still fucking unreal. Rangers, like a lot of it was made of, the Canucks trading them Tyler Mott and getting only a 4th in return, but the big underrated signing or trade they made was for Andrew Kopp out of Winnipeg. Like that's a great pickup for the Rangers for their playoff run. I have New York going pretty deep this run, just because I think like as much as I made fun of their decisions to double down on beef after the Washington Capitals kerfuffle. It's paid off. They've got some good fire. Artemi Panarin is unbelievable as per usual. And yeah, I picked them in 5. I don't know about you though.
Yeah, I have 2 words. Igor Shesterkin.
There's also that.
Yeah, that guy is going to probably win the Vezina. He had an incredible year. I remember talking to Kevin Woodley at the beginning of the season. And he was talking about like this was on the morning skate before Canucks Rangers, talking about how Igor Shesterkin, he was like this was like early in the year. This was like maybe like 2 weeks in, like
Sure.
3 weeks in. He was like best goalie in the league right here. You're watching him. It's Shesterkin. Outside of Demko, it's like Demko is second only to this guy. And it was like, okay. And I was kind of like, I wonder if he's gonna fall. Like I was wondering with Shesterkin, I'm like, he might fall off the cliff though. And he did a little bit. Like
He
his
did.
numbers took
He did when
looked good.
everyone took notice of him. Like, did you see that? It was like everyone was like,
Yes.
he's saved more above expected. He's like two more saves or something for setting the record since we started data tracking or something. And then when they pointed that out, like he had like 2 of his worst games like of all time.
Yeah, well, it's like with any rookie or like any like low newer guy, right? Where it's like suddenly when you start being really good, teams start paying more attention to you and start getting more putting together more game tape on how to beat you, and you have to adjust to that. And that's especially with goaltending, where it's like, okay, they can pinpoint exactly where your weakest spot is, like where they need to put shots to kind of put that fear of God into you. And Shesterkin, he recovered, did very, like, he's done well. He hasn't even like regressed to say bad hockey. He isn't like bad hockey. Like, yeah, he had those couple like stinkers in there.
Right.
But like he's just kind of reverted into being good, like being a good starting goaltender, which is all you need in the playoffs, is a good, solid, decent guy. And
reliable guy,
reliable, exactly. And right now, the Penguins, you're right. Like with Jari's going to be out at least, I believe, the first 2 games of this series at least. And Casey DeSmith I think has done okay, but he's not Shesterkin. Like you're going to get the goaltending is going to make all the difference here. I could see this going long. Like this could be a long series overall. Because again, it's hard for me to count out Crosby as like any team.
That's the thing,
Crosby
right?
on it.
It's like on one hand, you can't count out Shesterkin just stealing games, and on the other hand, you can't count out Crosby or Gensel combining for like 14 points each in a 4-game series. You know what I mean? Like that was that one year when they lost, or when they only went 14 games, but they both had like 20, or Gensel had 28 points. Or something.
Oh yeah, like there was like that series against the Flyers where it was like every game was like 10-6, and they were just like, and they would literally just go, "Oh, we're losing, okay," and then score 3 in like 5 minutes. Like they did that multiple times in that series. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. So it was incredible.
There's always that possibility, and I mean, frankly, like I think this series will be like a low key, like really exciting one. Usually Penguin series usually are kind of interesting, just because like, you know, Crosby always like has like that other gear. Same with Malkin, and Gensel's always like really fun too. But should be good. But both of us clearly gotta go with the goalie.
You know what it is with the Penguins is that they're always really good, but they're never necessarily like the elite, clear standout, like 100% bona fide heavy favorite. Like they're always like there's always the shred of doubt with them, which is why it's always like, and the series always ends up going like 6 or 7, like 6 or 7 with them, and it makes for good hockey. Like
that was like their back-to-back run, right? Where it was like they were not even like favorites, and it was like their defense core, you know, there's no way that team should have won a second cup, but they did, just like through sheer will. So it's like you can't ever count them out. So tough to count them out this time, but like
I also picked the Rangers. I think.
I think I got them in 7. We're Team Igor. We're Team Igor Panarin. So that's how it's going to be. On to the West though, with another goaltending duel, if you will. The number 1 Colorado Avalanche versus the number 4 Nashville Predators. We've found out that Yusei Saros is injured, missing the first 2 games of this series, which, I mean,
goodbye, Nashville.
Nothing's certain. I don't want to completely write off Nashville because, like, I started the preseason being like, I think Nashville is just going to fall off a cliff and they're going to play like shit. They have, like, just decimated their defense for some reason with trading Ryan Ellis. Ryan Ellis, who apparently has just no-showed Philadelphia for the final like month of the season or something like that, which is
So
always
that
good.
he did end up he was there for end of year availability, which was
Mm,
interesting. And like it was just like a lot of like things where it's like I guess they didn't know what exactly was wrong with him.
okay.
Like whether that was the doctors in the team or like even like specialists that he went to see, I don't think figured out like he was saying like it took them a while to pinpoint exactly what his injury was, which has got to be scary as hell when you're like when somebody's like, yeah, we know there's something wrong with your body, but we don't know what. Like that's
Yeah.
got to be
A little dicey.
alarming. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they did end up like, so yeah, he has said he wants to play in Philly, but it was like a trying year for him overall. Like,
Sure.
God, I
Hey,
can
if
imagine.
I had to play for Philly and they were that shit, yeah, I can
Jeez,
guarantee it.
that was.
And
Did you see
kind of
Zach
like
McEwen won an award,
good
community
for
award for
him.
them? Good for Zach, the
Good
big
for old
fella.
Zach, the big fella himself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't want to count Nashville out because I counted them out earlier this season and they came out of nowhere. You and I were both making fun of them protecting Tanner Jeannot, and he had like a near 40 goal season. So I don't know what to expect from them. Roman Yossi was a near 100-point player, which is fucking crazy. Like,
Yep.
first defenseman to
Love
have
him.
a near 100-point season in like 20 something years. Like, it's just unbelievable what he was pulling off. That being said, it's the Avs. Like,
Yes.
it's the Avs. You can't bet against them. And as you know, as bullish as I've been on their like goaltending, like it's hard to bet against Cale Makar. It's hard to bet against Nathan McKinnon. Like all these studs they have, right? They have a young defense core. Like they got Ryan Tate. Well, who's it? Not Devon
They
Taves.
got
Sorry, not
Devon
Ryan
Taves.
Taves.
They have Alex Newhook, I think, is on their defensive core as well.
Sam
Bowen
Gerard, like
Byram,
Bowen
former
Byron. Like
Giant.
yeah, so it's just
Yeah.
like you can't bet against it. And like even though who's their goalie, Darcy Kemper.
Their goalie is Darcy Kemper, who is
Yeah.
underrated. Again, another goaltender who, when healthy, is incredibly good.
hmm
And he has been
But
all year, I
I think
believe, more or
I
less.
think he had one injury scare like at the very end of the season, which had people going like, "Uh-oh."
Yeah.
But besides that, like it's just hard to bet against them, especially with Yusei Saros out. Like it's just like
Yeah.
I think this will be like a fun series, like 8-7 like score lines every single game. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
the Avs. It's not
Yeah.
a sweep. I think Nashville's going to surprise and take at least two. Like I think they'll push it.
See, if you see if you say Saros was in net, I would agree with you that I think they could push, but I do think it's going to be a sweep
It
because I
fair.
do not trust David Rick.
I guess yeah. I'm
We
assuming Yusei Saros can come back for a couple games, and if he
that
does, he'll steal
yes.
some. If he doesn't, it is David Riddick. Like
Nope.
no
Goodbye.
no offense to Big Save Dave, but I
I mean,
I yeah I don't want to be mean, so we'll just
I don't
say
want to be mean either, but then you look at like the play where he forgot where his post was and ran into it when he was
that was
making a save.
so funny.
It
That
was
was
very
so
funny,
good.
but I'm also like, this is who you're going into the
Yeah, yeah.
playoffs with.
That's gonna be the
Oh
GIF that like lives
no.
on if they
Yeah.
get like swept. But
Yeah, and I mean, we saw it with him in Toronto when the Canucks played them the couple times as when he was that brief period where he was a Leaf, where he let in like multiple soft goals. Like it was
yeah,
just like Tanner Pearson took a shot from like the far circle. And it just like went through like his blocker and behind him. And it's like, and you
yeah,
saw like John Garrett and Jim Houston were just laughing at how it went.
yeah,
Like,
straight up.
I'm sorry, like Colorado is it's going to be a high scoring. Like, it might
Mhm.
be kind of similar to like an old Penguins Flyers series in that way. But and again, if I think the Avalanche again, their only Achilles heel in the same way with Carolina is if the goaltending stays healthy, they'll be totally fine. But if they don't, they're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah,
I think that it's clear that they have the depth, they have all the everything else to do it.
yeah,
The only people that can stop them are themselves. I
pretty
think
much.
Colorado's I think as long as UC Saros is out, they're gonna sweep.
Yeah.
But if UC Saros is able to come back and play the way he normally does,
Mhm.
I think yeah, the Predators could steal a game or two.
Yeah, fair. The next series, number 1, Calgary Flames versus the number 4 Dallas Stars. This one's the easiest pick of the bunch. This is clearly Calgary. I don't think it's going to be a sweep. Actually, if there's going to be a sweep in all the series, I bet Calgary sweeps Dallas.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I
Interesting.
I think Dallas is they're a one-line team, And I think Calgary has at least three forward lines that have the ability to shut down Jason Robertson, Pavelski, and Rupe Hintz. And for that alone, I just have to pick them. Jacob Markstrom showed what he's capable of in playoffs when he was with the Canucks. Obviously, they underperformed heavily in that year last season, but I think that was due to Jacob Markstrom being overplayed in the regular season.
Yep.
So I think this is going to be their year. Obviously, like 2015 was a while ago where that was kind of like their first taste of like playoffs with Goudreau and Monahan and that like young core. And last year and the year before were pure disappointments because they were, the best team in the Western Conference at one point and kind of fell off. But they've reloaded with some good pieces. Blake Coleman was a good pickup. He hasn't really produced, but he's fit the Daryl Sutter mold quite well. Tyler Toffoli before the trade deadline was also a great pickup. Their defense, like the fact that they're getting like credible minutes out of Eric Goodbranson in like a top 4 is unbelievable. Yeah, I think this is probably a guaranteed sweep.
Interesting. So here's the thing. I picked Dallas in 5.
What?
Because I have said it 1,000 times before. I do not trust the Calgary Flames to do anything in the playoffs. They are, in my mind, just as liable to choke as the Leafs are. Like, they are the Leafs of the West. Like,
the Leafs West.
Yeah, they are 100% the team I would see trying to coast on their laurels, being like, oh, we're too good. No one's going to beat us. And then getting just walked by another team. Like there was the thing where they had home ice advantage. They won their division against a couple years ago before facing the Avs and then got absolutely cooked. Like I don't trust them. I do not trust them at all to do anything. Like I don't care how many good players they've added in this time. I look at that core group of guys like Gaudreau, Monahan, who I don't believe is there. Well, he is there,
He's
but
been like
he is injured, I believe. And
he was like a healthy scratch at some point this year. I think
he
was.
He was.
He's had allegedly it's because like he had like a hip injury that has like never been dealt with. So like that's why his like career's kind of gone off the rails, which like sucks for him.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, so but obviously if you can take Monahan out of your lineup and he wasn't a factor to begin with, and you're still getting like a near 120 point season out of Johnny Gaudreau, like you're doing something right. Yeah. The question has always been for Calgary, as you're saying, is like, can Johnny Gaudreau actually bring that to playoffs? Because he's so far through his career done nothing with it.
Nope.
So, but like, as
Chuck
for
does,
all my
Chuck does. I think Chuck's got a little bit more of the if they're gonna go places, I think it's gonna be largely off of Tkachuk doing his thing. I look at that team as very vulnerable to get upset. And like Markstrom might be the thing that holds them in, them in. Especially like the goaltending, they've clearly upgraded in that department.
Right.
But again, it's like one of those things where it's like he played a lot. Markstrom played a lot again this year.
True.
Like, in the early going, he didn't, which was good because Dan Vladar took a lot of starts and was very good. But then later on, he kind of went back to the one goalie thing, and that worries me.
Well, I would say like because my whole logic thing is like narratives and goalies and vibes, right? So a part of my thinking was like, if I was choosing based on goaltending, like I would pick Dan Vladar over whoever the fuck Dallas was going to roll out.
Jake Ottinger's done really well this year. Like,
that's true, but Dan Vladar has also been very, very, very good for Calgary. And I think Daryl Sutter coaches like very much playoff style hockey that's going to work. Whereas Dallas is very much just like if Jason Robertson and Joe Pavelski can score for us, great. Every other line just needs to hang on. And if they can't,
a little bit. They do, but keep in mind, they do have a lot of guys returning from the team that won in 2020 or went to the final in 2020. Like, it's not Sagan and Ben's team anymore, but like Miro Heiskanen is an exceptional talent. You got like you got Rope Hintz has taken another step this year. Robertson is another big piece, and Joe Pavelski has suddenly like turned the clock back 10 years and is back in his
As
prime
he
with the
does
Sharks.
every year.
Well, yeah, he's a consistently good hockey player. It's incredible how good how consistently good he still is. And
I can't
again,
remember if I can't remember if I said it on this podcast already, but I think I said to you maybe, or maybe it's just in my head, that I predict that JT Miller is going to be very much like a Joe Pavelski type who into his like mid 30s is still just as productive as he is now.
that would
Like
be
I just
fantastic.
have this feeling that he was so pigeonholed for like his time in New York and Tampa that like he wasn't really like as a famous other guy's quote once said, he's a peacock, you got to let him fly. And
Mhm.
just with the Canucks in the past 3 years, they've finally let him fly and shown what he can actually do if given the opportunities. And if he keeps getting those, like as his career progresses, like I think he's probably gonna just be like an unreal producer way longer than he probably should, because that's just his personality type. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think you're crazy for picking Dallas. I won't
I'm
argue with it, but
I'm just saying, Jake Ottinger had 30 wins and a 914 save percentage this year. Like the
fair.
he's not bad. He had a cup like there was I think literally like there was that one game against the Canucks where he had a tough night out, but like over other than that, he's been really solid more or less like all season. And I think that's also assuming that if they could also have like Braden Holtby come back from injury at some point, and
Sure.
or Anton Khudobin, so they have the depth in that department. I think the star. I think the Stars might be one of those teams that could be a little sneaky better than people are giving them credit for.
Fair. I don't give him any credit. On that note, let's go to our next series. The number 2 Edmonton Oilers versus the number 3 Los Angeles Kings. Uh, this one I think is a lot closer than people think. I think a lot of
Mhm.
people discredit Los Angeles purely because their defense is just completely obliterated, but they're getting incredible minutes out of a bunch of kids, and they have all season. And even though they kind of wavered a bit at the end of the year, I actually trust the Kings forward depth that more than I do the Oilers.
Oh, of course.
Like the Oilers, we all know
No
it's
question.
McDavid, Draisaitl, but they're coming against a team with 2 Selke forwards on it in Anze Kopitar and Phil Deneau. So it's like
Yeah.
that's like I mean, it's really funny because like fuck the Oilers, but it's really funny if you're the what's the name, Ken Holland, and you're like, well, our team is finally playing better. Mike Smith's playing good. We're heading into playoffs. We're going to have a favorable seed. Who are we getting? We're getting the team with 2 Selke candidates. Are you?
You're
No.
getting the team with 2 Selke candidates and 2 better goaltenders.
Yeah,
Whoops.
like
Uh-oh.
2 younger, better goaltenders. Like,
And Jonathan Quick ain't no spring chicken either. Like
no, but
he's
he's
just
not
not
40
40.
years old. Yeah, like I, yeah,
Oh
and
my god. Yeah.
I trust the mobility too on the Kings blue line more than I do the Oilers. Like the Oilers have like all those guys who are like older, tougher, and can like play like heavy minutes. But like when you can like skate the way Sean Dursey does, or skate the way
Yes.
Jordan Spence does, like Jordan Spence, for those that don't know, is
Quentin
a fourth
Byfield.
round pick from 2021. Like he is or 2020. He is fresh out of the draft. He played one overage season in the OHL, and now he was a point per game player in the AHL this year, and is like a quarter a point or half a point per game as an NHL defenseman, and that's fucking impressive for a
Like
fourth round pick.
they've done an exceptional job rebuilding that
Oh, for
prospect
sure. Like
cupboard. Like
they're
unreal.
exactly what the Canucks should have done. Basically,
Yes.
sold off what they could for as high as possible and reloaded with picks in the draft. Like their entire team is like, I think probably 70% of it is under the age of 24, and like at least 60% of those players are guys they drafted and developed through their AHL team. It's like impressive what they've put together since starting to rebuild 4 years ago. Because that's the thing. They were in playoffs 4 years ago, and here they are after having sold off a bunch of pieces, are now back in playoffs. And yeah, it's probably early. Maybe next year they take a step back and they don't, compete for playoffs. But this is like what Jim Benning was after this entire time as a GM was we want to get our young kids some playoff experience, and he could never do it. And this is exactly what the Kings managed to do. They overachieved. They got there, and you never want to sleep on an opponent in playoffs. And if the Oilers do, it could be a rough time. But for that reason, I picked the Kings in 5.
I picked the Kings in 6 for similar reasons. And I mean, like, that doesn't even like factor in the fact of like, oh, they also have like Victor Arvidsson. He's a game time decision, but like, holy cow, talk about a playoff performer. That's what he is.
Yeah, no kidding.
Like that. You got like, again, they have Quentin Byfield, like the former 2nd overall pick on the 4th line, just because he was coming off a bit of some injury stuff. And he's like, just kind of getting his legs back underneath him. Like, holy cow, that's huge for them. Like they have Edler, they have Alex Edler, they got Troy Stetcher.
That's the crazy thing is like Troy Stetcher is like their 7th defenseman right now because they're trusting the kids to play.
Yeah.
Like a lot of teams, like, as we've talked about in this program a lot of people sleep on Troy Stetcher and think of him as like ineffective because he's small, but this guy can play top 4 minutes when you need him to. He can PK. Like, obviously he knows how to work with Alex Edler, who's like, 100 years old. And if you can get like a 26-year-old, 27-year-old, like he can give you first pairing minutes in like shutdown role and be effective at it. And he had been every year as a Canuck, even though he'd start on the 3rd pair every time. So that guy knows how to play. And the fact that he can come in if like you're down in a series and just like all of a sudden give you that's huge for a young team. So for that reason alone, I'm like, McDavid's amazing and so is Draisaitl, but like I'm not betting on Mike Smith or Koskinen at all. Like,
no, I don't like people are like, oh, look at Mike Smith. He's 40, but he's doing really well. I'm like, yeah, don't buy. He did that last year. And then look, and then what happened? Oh, they got swept in 4 games. Like that means nothing.
And to be fair, asterisk, the sweep was not really Mike Smith's fault. He was actually okay in that series. It was like all the forwards just like completely shit the bed and were just complete ass.
Yeah, they coasted on their laurels. They thought they were good enough to do it without it. Like they just were like, we'll be fine. Like because the Oilers are that team year after year that goes, we're better than everyone else. Screw you. And then we can do 50% and win. And then all of a sudden they're 3 games down. Like, like, we needed to try. Like,
tried a lot harder.
They're going to be exactly that. They're another one of those groups that could very easily, like, you could get picked off here if they're not careful. And the Kings are exactly the type of team that's like built to not like worry too much about winning the series. Like it's not the end of the world for them if they don't.
Yeah, they're just here for experience reps. Like they're not here for a legitimate cup run. It's just like one of those things where it's like the further they go, hey, the better.
Yeah,
the more impressive it is.
They're the Canucks from the bubble year. Like they can leave here without winning a single series and still be like, hey, we weren't supposed to be here at all in the first place. So who cares? Like, so they're gonna be able to play very loose, very very stress-free hockey, which can really make a difference, as we've brought up before.
They're not hurting if they lose, basically, which is kind of where you want to be if you're a coach. Like you can just tell your players, hey, we're here for a good time, not a long time. Let's just have fun. Soak in the experience and take this as a learning tool for next year, regardless of the outcome. And that's a way better message to take into your locker room than say Oilers, where it's like Ken Holland, like, all right, guys, this is it.
If you lose, I'm gonna trade all of you.
You have to keep your composure.
I will trade all of you for Justin Abdulkader so fast.
Yeah, you don't even know. Duncan Keith, I'll buy you out. You'll see.
Yeah, you're he's like grabbing all the players by the scruff, like, you hear me?
Shaking
I
them.
will send you to Siberia.
It's Homer shaking the guy's cage. He's like, hey, stop shaking that bird's cage.
Yeah,
I'm never gonna stop shaking. Yeah,
I'm here to rattle some cages like that. Yeah, it's exactly
literal cages. Okay, East-West finalists.
Oh,
So
we have one more series. You missed one.
did I?
Minnesota St. Louis. We missed one.
Oh yeah.
Which honestly is interesting because, like, I see why. In a way, it makes sense that you missed it because it's one of those series where it's like,
It's a
like
sleeper series, kind of like
it's
it's a complete pick 'em.
like, well, yeah, it's a sleeper series, but in a way, I almost feel like it's the closest out of the 8. Like,
Sure.
and we were talking about this before, the Blues and the Wild, because the Wild are, I believe, the third best team in the West, by record.
Yeah, I
But
think
the
so.
Blues have been arguably the hottest team in the NHL in the last over the final month and a half of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, hmm.
It's a
I
tough
w-
one.
what did I even pick? I think I picked St. Louis because a lot of people are picking the Wild based off of Kaprizov and the fact that they have Talbot and Fleury and net, which is completely fair. Like if you're going to bet on goaltending, which has been my MO the entire time, this is the one time where I actually bet on inexperienced goaltending because I think Ville Husso is a really good prospect, but the chances of, you know, him playing the whole series, like they might 50-50 it with Binnington just because,
Because they feel like
experience
losing
or
a
whatever.
few. Yeah.
Yeah, they feel like he gets spicy or whatever.
They're like,
But
we need some adversity. Let's throw Biddington in so give us a loss so we
yeah,
can.
but I think I said it in one of the last episodes I was in that St. Louis basically is probably going to want to make up for how poorly they did in the bubble and how poorly they did last year. And now that they've got like pretty much every player firing on all cylinders, like David Perron was unbelievable. They had 9 skaters or something with 20 goals or more. Like they're like almost like I don't want to say they're slept on because like people know that they're really fucking good this year. But I feel like people are kind of not giving them the credit where it's due. Like I think they reloaded with some good pieces and have a lot of players playing at their peak right now. Like we talked a lot about how Vlad Tarasenko wanted out of St. Louis after, before the Seattle expansion draft. And
Yeah.
he could have come out this year and had like a crap season, but instead he's been unreal. It's like the leading
Yes.
scorer or whatever.
Yeah. Like, and they have guys like Torrey Krug on defense. Like they have built such a strong overall team. Like, and like, what was it? Jordan Kyrou has been
Yeah.
exceptional for them
Robert
this
Thomas
year.
has been unreal.
Yep.
Like a lot of young guys basically stepped up at the right moment to kind of usher in the post Petrangelo era where, that team that won the cup first was just hot and heavy, bunch of huge guys, Joel Edmondson, Jay Bouwmeester, just a bunch of size basically to try and muscle their way to a cup final. That one worked. Didn't really work in the bubble. They were too tired after their COVID. A lot of big bodies, need a lot of air. Didn't really work. This year, youth, speed, and goal scoring, and could be interesting. I like Minnesota because I think they play fun hockey, which is shocking because
Ironic, yeah, because they hadn't for the last
they at all
24 years. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Kaprizov came in and just like changed the outcome or the direction of that team, and Dean Evison pivoted really well to fundamentally change the way the Minnesota Wild play and win and succeed. But yeah, St. Louis, man, I just can't. I think they're going to bounce back and kind of. I mean, I don't think they're going to repeat, but I would not be shocked if they went to the Western Conference Final, just because I think they're a sleeper.
They are a sleeper, and in a way, both teams are. Like I would say, even Minnesota's a bit of a sleeper because they've. I'm trying to think of when the last time the Wild even won a playoff series was. Like it might be all the way back in like the early 2010s.
I think so.
Because and part of that has always been like circumstance where they would run into like either like a defending champion or in like the Central Division, which has been stacked for quite a while.
Yeah.
Like they always ended up running into say like a St. Louis Blues or Blackhawks. Like they always kind of ran like a problem.
I think they might have gone past the first round. I think the first year that they picked up Suter and Parise.
Which was 2013.
Yeah, I think that's right. And then that was like it for them. It's like first round exits only after.
Yeah. Because they just never had they
had nothing else.
They had nothing else. They spent all their money on 2 guys, and then they never had the depth. Particularly in goal, they always had a lot of struggles there.
Yeah.
they were. I would like to see Minnesota get far. They're a good hockey market and everything. Like they're one of those teams where you're
But
like, oh, you'd like for them to have a little bit of success, even if the Canucks and Wild had some like past dust ups, right? Like you're still like, Minnesota deserves a little bit of success. It's been kind of a bummer for them that
it,
they've had to watch Jacques Lemaire hockey for 20
especially,
years.
oh god, especially when like they're approaching a period of time when Parise and Suter, speaking of, are going to be like buyout cap hits of like $14 million combined. So like you want them to have success now because they might not have a window for another like 3-4 years.
Yeah. Totally. Because that cap hit they took from buying out their contracts in the summer.
Yeah.
Totally. Suter, who's now on the Stars, which is interesting.
Yeah, shout out to Ryan Suter's agent for going from like a $13 million or $10 million payday to still getting like a $3 million, $4 million payday after getting bought out. Like that's some nifty work.
Well, I mean, they could have had Tucker Pullman for cheaper, but
That Tucker Pullman money.
that's Tucker Pullman money. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, let's pick our Eastern Western finalist, shall we?
Sure. All right, let's do it.
All right. So
I think I let the cat out of the bag earlier in the show. Like, I mean, I think if you know me, you know pretty well where I'm going. Like, like Colorado and Florida are my two that I think are gonna make it a good distance. If we want to even like if saying like Final Four, like thinking back to that, like I think back to I think the Rangers are gonna go a decent run, or the Hurricanes as well. Like I think one of those teams is gonna. It's kind of tough to say because I think right now I'd give the edge to the Rangers just based on the goaltending.
sure.
But like the Hurricanes go pretty far too, and then in the West, and then the Pacific, I think I'd say LA has again one of those like weirdly like they're a sleeper. They're a bit of a sleeper to get a good distance out there. I think. But either way, I think Colorado and Florida are the two teams to beat. And I know it never goes that way. Like it's never those top two teams in the conference that actually end up making it.
Right.
Because something always happens along the way. But I really want to see that 1996 Cup final rematch, especially because it would actually be good this time.
You know what's funny? So I have the same kind of logic as you as a Cup rematch, but my Cup rematch is Calgary versus Tampa. So
oh wow!
Even though Tampa is getting blown out right now 4-0, I still have a feeling they have the pedigree to come back. They probably won't know now that I've said it, and they'll get swept.
I mean,
but if they
down
don't,
4-0 right now to Toronto. Like,
but like because I've said they have the pedigree to come back, they're not going to win a single game in this series. But if they do, and they manage to make it to the finals, I'm hoping for a Calgary-Tampa rematch. And Calgary, I have a feeling this is their year, and they're going to do it. And then Johnny Gaudreau is going to get paid and move on.
I really hope you're wrong.
I
love Jacob Markstrom. I would love him a lot more if he were not a Calgary Flame.
Hey, I just have a feeling, like looking at narratives, right? This is going to be the most Canuck central season or postseason ever, where Chris Tanev hoists the Stanley Cup and hands it to Eric Goodbranson, who then hands it to Jacob Markstrom. Who then hands it to Tyler Toffoli
and Jim Benning.
Like I'm just telling you, it's going to be the most like Canucks Twitter is obviously falling off pretty hard towards the end of the season because there was nothing to talk about. The playoff chase was dead. No one was watching those final two games. Like no one cared.
I was way more invested in that final game than I should have been. Like I was like, come on, get JT Miller get
him to 100, and he couldn't do it.
A century point, like please.
Yeah.
Like
so.
Yeah.
So anyway, I have a feeling Canucks Twitter is going to be hot and heavy when Calgary makes a run to the playoff finals. I have a feeling, just narrative wise, that's just what's going to happen. My alternate picks, though, I would actually venture it would be Colorado and Carolina in the finals, with Colorado winning.
I would love to see Carolina in a finals again. I think they're another team that plays fun hockey. Like again, what was the whole thing last year that got Islanders fans extremely mad at me was me talking about how I hated seeing
the
them
most
win
boring
because they were
hockey.
the boringest team in the freaking planet.
Like
Like it was
completely valid.
miserable to watch. Like not saying they weren't good. Like
Yeah,
they were
they're
clearly
just
good.
boring.
They just played they were just good by playing boring ass hockey.
Yeah.
And thankfully this year, I don't think they're I'm struggling to think of a team that kind of plays that style again, like style
Yeah.
out of this group. Maybe it's St. Louis to a degree, but even then they have like offensive just behemoths everywhere, and like
Yeah.
Dallas maybe, but even then it's like, oh, you got Jason Robertson, you got the young
Mhm.
goaltending, like they've got some pieces. Overall, I think this is going to be this is a very good, interesting group of teams. I think we, like you mentioned with the storylines, I think the storylines of the first round aren't as interesting this year as they might have been in years past, but I think in the second round they could get
Yeah. Second
really
round is
good.
when I think things can get very spicy. First
Yeah,
round, there isn't much to go on. It's like pretty much across the board. It's all just goalie
yeah,
questions. That's about
yeah.
it. But like when the second round comes, I think there's enough going on. We were talking beforehand. The broadcast had pointed out how the Matt Duchene story,
That's
if
right.
Colorado, like with Colorado, Nashville is probably like one of the few storylines going on in the first round. But
Yeah,
yeah, otherwise,
yeah.
just looking at the playoffs in general, because we've already talked about like what we think is going to be an exciting round and what's going to be like, you know, who we think the cup winner is going to be. But just like of all the series that you're looking at on paper, like what do you think is going to be those boring series? Like because last year, obviously, as you're saying, we said Islanders not watch
Any
anything
series
they
with the
do because they
Islanders is
suck.
a slog. Like
Yeah,
I think the Bruins Islanders series last year was just borderline unwatchable. Like it was just like, good lord, it won't end. Like it was so
yeah,
atrocious.
it was awful. I think this year that unwatchable series is probably going to be um man, I
Because it
almost
doesn't
want to
even, it's not
say
even just like, oh, what team is the most overmatched, because they might score 10 goals, which is
yeah,
fun in itself. I would
yeah.
say it's probably going to be something like, um, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, say, the Minnesota Blues series, because they're both
Yeah, because
still defensively minded, like that ends up being like one of the more low scoring affairs
they're
out of the
kind of like the
bunch.
same team too. Like they're both big
Mhm.
teams that like love to play like the heavy press, heavy check, but with like high scoring out of their top six. So like it would be like it would make sense if they both kind of canceled each other out and
Mhm.
ended up playing very like kind of safe defensive hockey, like a lot of neutral
And
zone trap kind of crap.
And it just entirely came down to Ville Husso versus Marc-Andre Fleury. Like,
Yeah,
that would be
which
the
would
whole,
be
like, that's the whole series.
yeah, but like by that same token, it could also end up being like the most exciting with like 9 goal games because Kaprizov goes off or whatever. Like
Yeah.
who knows? Like that's the thing. I think that's the good thing about this year's playoffs is like the matchups are at least competitive enough that a lot of them are total pick'ems. Like I think
Mhm.
there's enough arguments to be made that they're going to be like favorites, but there's enough arguments to be made that these are in fact like 50-50 bets for both
Mhm.
teams. So should be
Hockey's fun that way.
exciting. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's nice to have that because I think last year's playoffs it was kind of like I don't know. There was
Last year's
such a
playoffs were good, were really good.
they,
Well, at least the first round was. The first
they were
round was
good, but the first round was so much like I don't know. I felt like every series, like playoff series, you kind of knew what the result was going to be.
that might be true. Like, it was a little more predictable last time around, with
Yeah.
the exception of, like, Toronto, Montreal, and, like, well,
Hmm.
actually, you know what? Like, sorry, Jets, Oilers, I don't think I saw going the way that it did. Like, that was a
Oh,
little
I
surprising.
think I picked them to actually win because I was like, "There's no way the Oilers are going to do it. They're
I
shit.
I
Hell of
think
a overall."
I think I picked them to win. I think I picked the Jets to win, but like I didn't expect the sweep that they somehow put together last year. So the thing with like the best series, like in terms of like what might be the best series this year, like last year there was a clear favorite, which was the Battle of Florida, which was just
Yeah,
an
which was
absolute
unreal.
so fun. Like that series, I might never forget how fun it was, even though the Panthers lost. Like I was
Yeah.
like, oh, the hockey was intense. They hate each other. Like, and we might get that again this year. Well, I mean, not if they keep playing the way they're playing today.
Hmm.
What'll be interesting as well is like you mentioned you think Calgary might make the final. If Calgary and Edmonton play, I wonder if that ends up being like the axe for both of them, like in the sense of like, because of how intense that rivalry is, they will play to like 6 or 7 and just beat each other up to the
Right.
point that it's just like, oh, whoever's left standing in the Central is just like, well, we're gonna just pick off this team nice and easy because they're completely injured.
Yeah,
Um,
possibly. I think the Battle of Alberta thing is a lot of like it's a lot of media driven though. Like obviously like
well, they don't like each other.
what are
They
the ties
fought
though?
hard.
It's like Milan Lucic or whatever was on both teams. You know what I mean? Like it's not like I don't think it's as heated as people
I,
make it out to be just because like
I mean, those games get intense. Like they
eh,
keep fighting. They keep fighting. Like half the fights like happen in the first period. Like they're like there was like the last one that was
fair.
like 10-6 or some bullshit. Like it was just like no one played any defense and they ended up and like
Sure.
Calgary won like 10-6 or something like that. Like it was ridiculous.
Sure. Fair enough. Yeah, I think yeah, I mean we both bet against the Oilers, but like I would want the Oilers to win just so we could hopefully get like a Calgary Edmonton second round
That would be
because
good.
like yeah, we're complaining about like how there isn't that many first round series. Like it would be nice to, like the second round you get like the Battle of Alberta or you get Colorado versus
Minnesota.
Minnesota, so you get Kaprizov versus McKinnon. Like that would be fun as shit. So I don't know. Fingers
Florida, Tampa.
crossed.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Like fingers crossed. We get the worst at results so that like all the teams we don't like have embarrassing outcomes. But also fingers crossed we get the results that end up in series that are actually worth watching. Because I don't know, playoffs are garbage when it's like the Islanders move ahead. I do not
Yeah.
want to watch the Dallas Stars in the second round. Like I don't. I could not give a shit about the Dallas Stars. Love
I
Jason
do.
Robertson, but I do not give a fuck.
I mean, okay. I want good hockey and I would love to see Jacob Markstrom win a cup. But like yeah, I don't trust Calgary. I don't trust them
Fair.
one iota.
That
I think maybe you probably right though. Calgary probably will win.
that
Like
is probably the
it'd
most
be
that can be
better.
said about this playoffs. Is like there are a lot of reasons to not trust X team. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
every team has like an asterisk around it that says here's their gaping flaw. That if
Every
X goes wrong, it could be the end of their playoffs, and that's what makes this year's playoffs like really
interesting.
intriguing because I don't think there's been this many like can you trust X team's goaltender heading into a playoff series? As
There were a
many as there
lot of
are.
injuries
Like
to the goalies
outside
this
of
year.
yeah, like and right before
And right
playoffs
at the
started.
end,
Like so it's
right at
like
the finish line.
yeah, so it's like the two teams that you can trust the most are Vasilevsky and Shesterkin, and there's still asterisks around the rest of their team where you're like, can they actually still pull off a series win? So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
super intriguing. Obviously, you
Every
can
single team has Mr. Burns mystery box. You could trade it
what's
all
in the
in
box?
for
The
what's in
box.
this box. Yeah,
Yeah,
the box, the box.
yeah, but
That,
otherwise, folks, I think that's going to probably wrap it up for tonight's episode where we do our playoff coverage. We're going
yes.
to be obviously updating playoff games as we move along, and you can follow along as well. We're going to be trying to put together a little playoff bracket thing too. I know like
Yeah.
everyone's posting theirs through Daily
Yes.
Face Off and NHL, but we'll try and get something going, or at the very
Yeah.
least, we'll post our picks and we'll have another spicy bet maybe for Lachlan to dig his teeth into.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. That's the other thing. I think
But
we have
you
to
still
do
owe one.
we do have to do an in-person show in the next like week or so because I gotta eat hot shit.
You do.
So
Yep.
we're gonna get Popeyes and we're gonna get Popeyes, we're gonna watch the playoffs, and it's gonna be a grand old time of me just in pain after like one of
Yes,
these
sir.
episodes.
Until then, folks, I am Cody Sievertson. You can follow my work at Cody Sievertson on Twitter and apparently on CanucksArmy.com, which is really nice. And my website, ahlnucksharvest.com, if you want to read some of my older stuff or my stats pages, which will eventually be updated. Don't forget to follow us on patreon.com/CreaseCast, where you can follow us on $1 and $5 tiers. Your support is greatly appreciated. Shout out to all our Patreon supporters. We know content is few and far between, but you can blame me for all of that because of all the crap that I've been going through over the past month or so. So that is my fault, folks, but we appreciate your support regardless. As I've said before too, follow us on YouTube at youtube.com/thecreasecast. See everything in video format, see my sick ass shades where I look really dope. And Lachlan, why don't you tell them where they can find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Lach and Crease. You can find my writing work also at Canucks Army. I literally just wrote part 1 of a 3,000 word series. I believe the second part comes out tomorrow, grading
yeah.
all the different 29 Canuck players we graded in these report cards. Today were the middling guys, the guys who kind of jumped in between Abbotsford and Vancouver. Tomorrow, I believe, will be the top 6 forwards, and then we move on from there. I think, and yeah, I'm trying to think what else there. If there was anything else I needed to plug on this. Yeah. Oh, also on Friday, we are follow us on Twitch, twitch.tv/CreaseCast, because I will be doing on Twitch a little me just kind of running the draft lottery odds and seeing where the Canucks land. We're gonna do that a bunch of times and just make that into a video, because why not? Yeah, I think we're doing a show on Thursday this week. We have to double check on that though, because I forget when the Abbotsford plays. Something like that.
Yeah, Abbotsford plays Tuesday, Wednesday, and I believe on the 7th Saturday. So I will have post-game recaps on CanucksArmy.com. So stay tuned for that, folks.
Yeah.
Until next time, guys, we'll catch you on the flippy floor. Bye.
Bye.